the Quinn Marr Show.
My next guest literally grew up on screen. He survived Jim Carrey's Count Olaf, made us cry in Stepmom, and even had a talking dog for a best friend in Good Boy. He's been in everything from emotional dramas to family classics, and somehow made it all look so easy. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Quinn Marr Show, Liam Aiken. Liam, how is it going? And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Quinn. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you really do your research.
I
I'm
appreciate that.
impressed.
Yeah,
I'm
thank you, thank
impressed.
you. I'm a
Yeah.
really nosy guy, hence the whole podcast. So I appreciate that.
That
So
really
normally what I do
works
with
for
guests is
this.
we go right
Yeah.
back to the beginning of
Great.
basically just their life and come back to where we're at now.
Wow.
So for you, I literally live 8 hours away from New York City, and I've never been in my life.
Yeah.
I've wanted to
We
go.
haven't.
I wanted to go for so long, and just I don't know why, it just never worked out. So for you
Okay.
being born in New York City.
Yeah.
Tell me about like what that was like. Like, where in New York were you born? Was it like the movies where you're taking subways everywhere? Like, give me all the deets on that.
Yeah. Well, I was born at Lenox Hill Hospital, heart of New York City, in 1990, and my family at the time, my mom and dad lived in Weehawken, New Jersey,
Okay.
which is a great place to grow up, but sort of an interesting place too, because I grew up. The New York was at my doorstep. I could see it at the end of my block. So when I tell people I'm from New York, they go, "Oh, what part?" And then I say Weehawken, New Jersey, and they say, "Well, that's not New York." But then when I
Especially the
tell
people from there, they go, don't try to lump
no, that's
yourself in
not.
with us.
That doesn't count. That
Yeah.
doesn't count. That's on the other side of the border. But people from New Jersey say, "Where are you from in New Jersey?" And I say Weehawken, and they're like, "Oh, that's New York. That's basically New
You're in
York."
no man's land. You're just stuck in the middle.
That's right. We used to call it New York with the view, because you can see New York. It's the best view. When you do make it to the city, there's not a ton to do on the other side of the river. But if you want to see the perfect view of Manhattan, especially at night, go across the river and go to Palisades Park, and it's really beautiful.
love
They
that.
film a lot there too, like King of New York was filmed there. Miss Congeniality, a bunch of movies. Sometimes you'll see the street I grew up on in these films, because
That's cool.
it perfectly frames the Empire State Building. Yeah. So I grew up there. That's where I grew up.
Now, being able to do like obviously so many different things, like you said, New York was literally at your doorstep. What kind of kid
Yeah.
were you? Was it like performing right away? Were you into books, science, sports? Like, what was little Liam doing at this time?
Oh, I loved sports. I played baseball. I was big into baseball. Yeah, that was my favorite. That was my sport of choice. And I watched the Yankees growing up. I couldn't have been luckier too. Growing up, like when I was 6 or 7, the Yankees started that series of total domination of the league, and they were so great to watch and amazing. And Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams, and like all my favorite baseball players are still from that time. Yeah, so that was my thing. Sports wise, baseball, for sure. I did. I mean, I started really young, doing commercials. I started doing commercials when I was about 6, and it wasn't immediate. It was sort of a long process, as it is. It just always is. Auditioning and for months, and it got to a point where my mom had decided, because it was kind of her idea. Maybe it'd be fun, and I could put away a college fund. That was the inspiration for it. And then from then on, education played a really big role. Whenever I was working, I always had to be, fully in school, because that's why I was doing it in the first place. So we never lost sight of that. Anyway, but yeah, so we started in commercials, and I was gonna stop after about 6 months, and my agent, who is still my agent, At the time, she said, just go for one more, just do one more audition. And I did, and I got that job. It was a Ford Windstar commercial.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'll never forget it. And it turned into a couple days shooting. And then from there, I just started getting gig after gig. And it was really fun, you know. I mean, it's basically playtime at that age,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know.
I want to
So,
go back for a second because you have an interesting upbringing with both your parents being in the creative side of just like the world. Like your mom was an artist, and then I know your dad was an MTV producer. So, and
right.
I know unfortunately he died when you were about 2. So
Hmm.
what was that like then? Like how much do you know about your dad's career? And then on the flip side, with your mom being an artist and you growing up with her, what was that dynamic like?
Well, my mom really kept my dad alive in our household. You know, I think uh, when I think about my dad, I think about all the things that my mom told me, um, all the memories she shared, all the times she would say, "Oh my God, that was just like your dad when you just did that thing," or you know, little mannerisms that she would notice, and you know, and I reminded her of him. Um, my family too were they were always talking about him and um, telling me stories from when he was really little. Um, so you know, and I knew a fair amount about his work too because his best friend for a long time we were really close with his best friend when I was growing up. So we would talk about MTV stuff and you know my mom knows a lot about that, so she really kept me in the loop, feeling like you know like he was still there, um, and yeah, and then as I've grown up and as I've moved around the world, every once in a while I'll run into somebody who knew him, and that is a trip.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's always something special. It's always amazing because you know he worked a lot when he was at MTV. His thing was comedy because MTV at the time had a few shows, half hour comedy hour, ones to watch. They had a few of these specials that kind of were the forerunner for the Comedy Channel, which then became Comedy Central, and like the shows that you'd see on Comedy Central, like I forget what it was called, but there was a show that was like a bunch of different comedians, and it would show small clips from each of them.
Okay.
Kind of do like a round, like it would go around to several different comedians and show like a feature of each of them, and that was kind of a format that he had on his show. That was kind of his. He produced these shows where he would find young comics who were coming up. Like he gave Louis C.K. his very first television appearance. Um, he found you know he would go to all the comedy. His thing was comedy clubs, and he would go to Caroline's and all these famous comedy clubs in New York, and see people and ask them to be on his show. And people really wanted to get on his show too. Like you know, it was kind of a thing in the '80s. Half hour comedy hour was like where comedians wanted to, you know, kind of that was like an important step. Kind of you could count that as like kind of moving your career forward. And there was one time my mom told me about they were in the hospital. I think it was either for my dad when he wasn't well, or it might have been for her when she was pregnant with me, and and this nurse came in and looked at the sheet and saw you know that like his name, and it's like, are you, his name was Bill Aiken. She was like, are you like the Bill Aiken? And he, you know, was like, yeah, yeah. And, and so she was a stand-up. She was doing stand-up, and she started doing her bits, like her
No
routine
way.
in the hospital for my dad. And you know, he was very polite, very kind, encouraging guy. so he would never have said anything about like please stop or whatever. So she was doing her thing, and anyway she left and then came back like days later, and was like, oh, I'm just coming in to check in to see how you guys are doing. Oh, and here, by the way, here's a VHS tape of my like she handed him a reel of her bits.
See, regardless if it was for him like there like when he was sick, or if it was like when your mom was about to give birth, like either way, that's an awkward time to do that, no matter what. So that's nice that he was nice about it too.
Yeah, I totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and when I met Adam Sandler when I was about 15 or 14 or 15, it was actually when I was doing Lemony Snicket. Um, uh, he had worked closely with my dad in the 80s before he was on SNL. He was on a bunch of my dad's episodes of my dad's show, or a couple different shows, and yeah, he's good friends with Kevin Nealon, of course, who was my dad in Good Boy. And so I went to Kevin Nealon's birthday party. Adam was there. Kevin was like, "Hey, Adam, this is Liam Aiken," and my mom said, "Don't you remember Bill Aiken?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." And she was like, "Well, this is his son." And he went, "Wow, okay, cool, yeah, nice to meet you." And he walked away. About 10 or 15 minutes later, he came back and he said to my mom, "Hey, can I talk to your son for a minute?" She was like, "Yeah, of course." He sort of just head on, just sort of said, "I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for someone like your dad."
Wow.
He said to me, and he's a super candid guy. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but he said, he would put laugh tracks on my stand-up when it wasn't, working in the room. He would make me look good. He would take me to lunch after I bombed, and he'd say, "Just keep doing it. Just keep going." My dad would take his phone calls any time of day, and just talk him through it and just say, "Yeah, keep going. Just keep going. Keep doing it. Keep doing it." And now we know, what that kind of influence can have on a person, and especially someone with as much perseverance as Adam, to ride through these different phases of a career and have gone to places that I don't think anyone at the time even had a model for what he has ended up doing. I don't think anyone would have ever seen that coming, but it came out of this place of real trial and error, real hardship, and he worked through it. And so he just shared that with me and was like, "Look, you're lucky too, because he was skinny and you're skinny, so you're a lucky guy." And he's just as sweet and funny, and run into him a few times after that, and he's always been just great.
That's amazing. Yeah, like I mean, I know people make jokes about like like the Sandler verse, like this guy, the
Yeah.
movies, and like it's insane. And he seems like such a great guy. Not only just like the great movies he's made, but then he brings his friends on. He brings the same crew to all the
Yeah.
movies. Like he just seems like the most personable guy in the world.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true. I mean, that's huge. I think in this business where who is changing constantly, to have someone that maintains those relationships and those bonds, that is really a rare thing, and a testament to the guy.
Yeah, and it's so timely we're having this conversation too, because literally next week Happy Gilmore 2 comes out, and I am so pumped for it. You have no idea. The first one is insane. It came out. I'm pretty sure the year I was born, so 12. What's that? Almost 30 years ago. It was 96, I think it came out. Which that long, 29 years for a sequel is a big gap. So I'm really hopeful for this one.
It is. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Now it's funny because you mentioned how your first thing you ever did was that commercial for Ford, but I'm pretty sure, and tell me if I get this wrong, that you were technically in a segment on Night After Night with Alan Harvey when you were like a baby. So how did this come
You
about?
really have done your work. Your
I appreciate
wow.
it. So what was this segment, and like how did you even get onto this show? I know again you're an infant, but like give me the backstory on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I'm guess you've seen the YouTube clip.
Yeah.
So I've seen it too. I mean, that's all I really know about it.
Yeah.
What he said, in the clip, which is basically, I guess that my dad brought me to work, and I was on set that day, and Alan thought that would be a funny bit, and so he did this kind of crowd work kind of a thing, like with me. That was, yeah. I don't really know, but my dad was a real family guy, so I guess bringing me to set would have, yeah, would have just felt normal.
Right, exactly. You're like, and yeah, like that was your life. It was sets after that, right? So speaking of that, this is a little different set, but you made your stage debut in the Broadway play A Doll's House when you were 7.
Yeah,
So, did you play the main character Nora's son?
that's right. Yeah, she had two
Okay,
sons.
okay. So what do you remember about that play? Because I know again you're small, but like doing something like a Broadway play is a lot different than doing a school play. So yeah, take me through
Oh,
that.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was my introduction to a process. Um, I had done a couple of films, small film roles before that, and of course the commercials and stuff, which is kind of show up on the day, play a sort of a game, and it's all just about like the moment. You're just capturing like this little brief snippet of a moment. Um, you're capturing life, but in a very sort of small uh, scale.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, being in a theatrical production of any kind is a completely different process. Going through dialect, we had dialect work because we were doing, it was an all British cast. So to play their children, it had to make sense. We had to live in that world. We had to be in that world. Um, and, uh, and, and working with working over time too. That was a real awakening, kind of working on something that you do night after night after night for weeks. Because we did it for a few months. It was during school also, so I was going into the theater like around, I don't know, 5:30, 6 o'clock every night. So I'd be in school all day, and then I'd go to work, and I was home because we lived in Weehawken. I was home by 9:30 after the first act, so I'd be in bed, and that was really important. Like I said, the education thing was paramount, and it couldn't get in the way of that. The other boy who was playing my brother lived in Pennsylvania. He had to drive like 2 hours to get home. He wasn't home until like 11, something like that. He was, and that's I was very very lucky in that sense because that's normal too. He would that's just kind of um, that was the lengths that he was having to go to take part in this. But yeah, so um, yeah, like seeing the play change from night to night too. I mean, there's really, really vivid memories uh, of the commitment that Janet McTeer, Owen Teale, Peter Gowan, that these incredible actors had to their craft, and that being the first time that I got to experience that up close. Not to say I hadn't worked with super talented people before that, but to see the process, to see the rehearsals, to see the preparation every night, to see the commitment night after night after night that those incredible actors have and had. Yeah, I mean, and then also like, what a wild production to be a part of. I mean, multiple Tonys, nominations for every category that year. Seeing people win, the just like the sort of the pinnacle of dramatic stage acting. It was was wild. And yeah, one. So there are many stories like kind of like this, but one from that play was. I remember being off stage waiting to go on, and it was particularly hot, and the Belasco Theater at the time, maybe they've updated the air conditioning system or whatever, but it was super hot, and even if it wasn't a period piece, it would have been oppressive. But Janet McTeer was wearing a corset and a full sort of hoop skirt and this heavy constricting costume, and I remember being off stage and hearing something happening, and then the doors flying open and her kind of falling out the back of the stage, and she fainted because it was so hot, and the curtain came down, and Owen, who you'll know if you've seen Game of Thrones. It was really cool to kind of see him see him again in that series. But anyway, he goes to the front of the stage and he tells everybody, "Look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry. We need a moment." And to everyone's amazement, Janet took the corset off, went back out on stage, and performed the rest of the piece.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that was like getting to see that and getting to see like, wow, these are people who are treading the boards at a really high level, whose commitment is so intense, so serious, so profound, very, very lucky. Yeah.
That's so cool. Kind of moving from the stage to the screen. Now, this one's an interesting one. So, the object of my affection. You played Nathan. You're in one scene at the beginning of this movie. So, you mentioned about just such a great cast with the Broadway play, but then in this one you got some heavy hitters with Jennifer Aniston, Paul Rudd, Alan Alda. Allison Janney.
Yeah.
Again, I know you weren't mainly in this movie, but I know there's. Do you know the little fact everyone talks about with this movie with you specifically?
No.
Okay, so in
Right.
this scene, you're talking to Paul Rudd, and you ask him a question, and he responds to your character, and you can see you mouthing his lines as he's saying it. I read this the other day. I was like, no way. So I went on to Disney Plus. I watched it, and I watched it a couple of times. Yeah, it's literally Paul Rudd, or you say your line, Paul Rudd says his, and you're mouthing it perfectly. Is it saying that they just left that in there? Kind of funny. Maybe it's something obviously they didn't notice, but. Anything about this movie? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember what a nice guy Paul Rudd is.
Yeah.
To put up with that and not say anything about it, and not stop the shooting and be like, guys, we got to get this kid to stop mouthing my lines. I don't know what that was. I don't know.
You never heard that before? No one's told you that happened?
No, I mean, it's been so long. I haven't
Right.
seen that film in so long, and I do not remember that happening. But that was how I worked. I mean, it's not, I shouldn't have been doing that, but I guess, hey, I'm in good company, right? With Emma Watson. There's a famous clip of her doing that with her scene partners.
Yep. Will Smith that used to do it for Fresh Prince as well.
No.
Yeah, you can see in the earlier seasons he does it. Yeah, specifically when with scenes with Don Cheadle, who played one of his buddies from town, would come in, and he would mouth back Cheadle's lines to him. Yeah, so you are in good company.
That is too funny. That is really too funny. But yeah, that's how I learned my lines. I would learn my lines. I'd learn their lines. That
do you still do that now? Obviously not mouth on screen, but you still learn everyone else's lines too that you're sharing.
Yeah. I do.
Well, as long as you're not mouthing the lines that you're not supposed to, you're fine.
No.
Yeah, that's amazing. You should search up the
clip
and watch
it. It helps to memorize what you're responding to. Not memorize what you're responding to, but just to when you're running it on your own and you don't have somebody to work with, it just helps to think about the experience of the other person, how they might be receiving your words, and then how you might receive their words, and So yeah,
It's more, well, I mean, at that point, it's more of a conversation, and then instead of just
yeah,
words, right?
yeah,
That's a
right.
really good way to do it. And it's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah, Emma Watson used to do the same thing. That's hilarious, and it's even better because you're wearing like some, like, I think it's like a frog costume or something. Like, it was such a serious, like,
Yeah,
scene too.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
then something like that's like what, like a couple days, a day of work probably.
yeah. That was a few days. I remember
Yeah.
having a few scenes. I don't remember it being just I remember being in a classroom and kind of having a regular kid sort of outfit, and then I remember that costume thing was like a school play or something.
Yes. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Exactly. That's awesome. And like it's funny that as I go down like your line of work, everything you've been in, there's just heavy hitters of a cast. It's insane. Like, I'm moving on to Stepmom that I mentioned. Susan Sarandon, Julia Roberts, Ed Harris. Like, come on. And this is like the late 90s. So to kind of go into that movie, do you remember like how you would have heard about the film then? Was it your agent coming to you? Was it a long audition process? Let's go back
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, they had been casting that film for a while, so my agent was aware of the project and put me up for it, and I went in and was pretty cheeky with Chris Columbus, um, and that first audition I think made a made an impression on him. Like, I wasn't a typical, like, there are kids that will go in for auditions, and this is not like a bad thing or a wrong thing, but they will go in for auditions and be super polite,
Hmm.
and that's generally a good thing because they're probably raised well, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I wasn't like a jerk, but like I remember he asked me a question. He said, "Did you read the script or something?" And he said, "Like, did you read the script?" And I said something like, "Do you think I can't read?" Something like that. I don't know. I mean, it was something along those lines, and it just it triggered something funny in him where
Yeah.
he recognized, like, oh, this kid isn't afraid. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't kind of go with the polite, like, oh yes, I read the script and I really enjoyed it, Chris. You know, I went with like, what do you, well, yeah, what are you saying about me? You know, you
Yeah.
think that,
Duh. Yeah.
duh, yeah, it's the
Why do you
job.
think I'm here? Yeah.
Yeah,
Seriously.
I'm an actor. Come on,
Yeah.
Chris.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah. So I remember that, and then I remember, that going really well. I remember Susan wanting to meet me, and I remember, never forget, the doors, opening in her part that first time I went to her house, and she has two kids. She has two boys. She has three children, but she has two boys. One was a year older than me. One was a year younger, and so that was like, this is the coolest house in the world.
Yeah.
Like, we were playing, like, games in her living room, and she was kind of hanging out and watching me play, and just getting a feel. And also, like, at that time when you're a kid, you're also, your parent it's important that they get a sense of the parent, that, like, they don't, it's important that the parent's cool, because parents can be around. If the parents can be demanding, if the parents can be this, that, or, the other thing, then yeah, then it can hurt the atmosphere on set. So anyway, my mom and Susan hit it off. Susan is still, we're super close with Susan. She's an amazing friend, an amazing person, who's really been there for me, many times. But yeah, so I remember that was part of the audition process. Kind of, that was
Hmm.
like, that was that, and I remember meeting Julia. Um, I remember we also had a meeting. It was really important for Julia to meet me, uh, and then Julia and we became really close too. I mean, that film, we were a family,
Hmm.
and in many ways, we still are. We keep in touch, and I actually saw Julia last a couple summers ago,
Oh, nice.
most recently. Yeah, so I do. I mean, I really remember that whole job, and I also remember, my mom being apprehensive about it. That was another thing that was kind of unusual about my mom. Most of the time, a kid is close to getting a job, and the parents like, yes, I want, want them to get the job. But my mom was reading the script and was seeing that the subject matter, right, which was a family dealing with a parent who was succumbing to a terminal cancer diagnosis, and it was really challenging, a difficult battle. And there are other things happening in that film too, and that's why it's an amazing film that really has stayed with people for so long, because you're dealing with divorce, you're dealing with illness in the family, you're dealing with new family members, you're dealing with one of the kids is going through like adolescence, and so you're dealing with all these amazing topics, and that's why it's kind of a great film. I mean, it really covers so much ground. So my mom saw that it was what the subject matter was, and was thinking about me and my dad, and wasn't really sure that it would be healthy for me to go through that experience. And was very tentative and was very conscious of the kid I was at the time, and how this could affect me. So she had conversations with Chris, the director, Chris Columbus, about the film and about the subject matter, and like what it was really about, and how would it be handled, and how present would that be, because if it was really heavy, if it was really all about that, which when you see the film, it it's going on, but life is happening too, which is so true for how life is, what life is like. It's not always the same day over and over again. It's different things happening, and yes, this thing is happening, and it's difficult, and it's I don't want to say tearing the family apart, but it's a challenge that we're all dealing with. But then something else happens, and that takes our attention, and then we're doing this, and there's life, So it was just really important that it wasn't going to be a traumatic experience in that way. So I mean, I think my mom for a while was like, no, no, I don't think we're going to do this.
And that's fair, yeah. Like just how close it hits to home too.
Yeah.
So then when you would have like the sad scenes, obviously, I know most actors like pull from wherever in their life, right? So for you, do you remember like pulling the sadness from your own experiences that are aligning with this movie?
I think I don't want to say, it's because it's a terrible thing to have had experience with. But for me, I wasn't using I was using my firsthand experience in the sense that I know what loss is, right?
Yeah.
I know what that is. That being said, I was not conscious of what was happening when it was happening. I was 2 years old when I lost my father, and he battled for about a year. So for that, I was almost 3, so that was like a third of my life that I didn't, I wouldn't have known anything else. So in that sense, I think it was I could have been taking directly from my experience and putting it into the film, but because that wasn't my experience, I was going through the process of that experience as if I was fully conscious while it was happening.
Right.
So it was very different. Like those emotional scenes were really me bringing myself to the circumstance, to the moment that my character was in, rather than me trying to trigger memories of what that was like for me. So knowing the somberness, knowing the somber moments, and treating them with gravity and respect, which I think is it can be really tricky when you're playing a moment that you've really lived in your real life, and it because then, like, maybe it doesn't match, or maybe your feelings are different, and maybe things have shifted in some way. So
Yeah, it's incredible that like you at that young of age are having this trains of thought like on how to do it too, right? Like you said, like you're pulling from that, but you're not at the same time, and like the fact that you're conscious of that at that young of age is pretty fascinating.
mm. Yeah, I think because I went through it and was talking about it so much with my mom, and asking, I mean, kids ask millions and millions of questions, and so asking those questions, and then when it came to the day, it was playing the as if game, playing as if this is what's really happening right now, which I was ready for. I think if I had grown up without that experience, it would have seemed so foreign. It would have seemed so. The idea of losing a parent would have been so abstract, that I don't know. I don't know that I would have been able to put myself in those shoes at that young of an age. I mean, at 7 years old, it's. I mean, there are kids that have done it, but I mean, it's really hard to do that sort of work.
Well, you did a fantastic job because that is an incredibly sad movie. So
Yeah,
you did do a great job.
it
Um,
is. It is. Yeah, it's
you
beautiful.
mentioned, of course, one well-known director, Chris Columbus. Now,
Yeah.
I need you to debunk something for me. Is it
What's
true
that?
you were considered for the role of Harry Potter? You were brought to England. They offer you the job. They offer you the job. You go home. Whatever. They call you back, however much later, and say, "Hey, sorry, actually, no, you're not British, so you can't have it." Is any of that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
That's entirely true. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. 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 That was amazing. I mean, that was so. I was 10, and Chris called up, and we'd wanted to work together. Again, we'd always wanted to do something, and he said, I'm always going to be looking for something for you, and then he was like, I think I found the thing. I think I found the thing. Yeah, and I actually was a British citizen and still am, because my mom was born in England, and so I had my British citizenship, and but I didn't grow up there, which I understood the distinction, that was being drawn. Yeah. So all of that is true. I did the screen test. I met Emma and Rupert. There's a screen test of me and
We
Emma
need
and
that
Rupert sitting
released. We
around a
need to see
table
it. Yeah.
chatting. Yeah, just chatting.
Wow. So it's because J.K. Rowling, obviously the author, like insisted it needed to be a British actor, correct?
Yeah. She really wanted an all British cast.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. So, and I know I read somewhere that you said like it was kind of like a blessing in disguise because you would have been known as Harry Potter forever.
Well,
Now, can you tell me the
that
truth?
is
Just you and
something.
me here. Is that actually true? Do you actually were you thinking like, hey, I'm kind of glad I didn't get it?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm glad I didn't get it. I wouldn't
Right.
say, like, phew, like I'm
Yeah.
glad that, because if I of course I would have, with every job I get, I'm like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah.
There's no job that I get that I'm like, this is gonna curse me for the rest of my life. So yeah, I don't, and obviously to the opera. I mean, it's just like, my God, all the amazing, but people that got to that worked in that film, and all of it's a magical thing, to create magic with actors like that. That being said, I am so freaking happy, that Daniel, was Harry Potter,
Yeah.
because, like, what that guy has done in in what that experience was for him. I don't really know. I haven't really talked to him closely about it at all. But we've met and chatted a couple of times. But what he has done since then has made me so freaking happy that it was him, because his love for acting is one of the beautiful things in our business. Like it's a treasure in itself, his love for the craft. So, like, that is amazing. That's so cool that happened. That it's Daniel, of all people. But what you said is something that was said to me. So when I was not long after that, I was probably still about 10 years old. I was up for a role in a film, Hearts in Atlantis, which was a film with Anthony Hopkins, and ultimately Anton Yelchin got the role. But I was in Virginia with Anton and another actor. Was it Spencer Treat Clark? I think it was Spencer Treat Clark, my sibling in A Doll's House. I think it might have been Spencer Treat Clark. Anyway, we were in Virginia auditioning. We were the last three auditioning for this role in Hearts in Atlantis. And it was shortly after the Harry Potter thing happened. And there was British press, they jumped on it. And so there was news stories about, actually the headline was, "As if by magic, the Yanks conjure Harry." There were photos of me and stuff. It was the whole thing. They got our home phone number, and they were calling and saying, "We'd love to talk to you about, this whole thing." And my mom was like, "My God, how did you get my number?" So while we were in Virginia, I met with Anthony. Like, I was auditioning for the part, but there were a few times where it was just us talking, and I remember him saying to me, "I hear that you were going to be Harry Potter, and it didn't work out." And I was like, yeah, that's true. Still, hurt about it a bit, and like after that whole thing happened, Chris wrote me a beautiful letter saying, "This is difficult. This is part of the business. Unfortunately, this isn't the time, but hopefully." So it wasn't all like, "Oh, that's okay, I'll get him next time," kind of thing right away.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, that was tough. Me and Chris really thought this was going to happen, and it didn't. So Anthony Hopkins said, "So yeah, I heard about that." He said, "But I think it's a very good thing." I was like, "What?" And he said, "Because if you had been Harry Potter, you would have been known as Harry Potter for the rest of your life." And that was a perspective that I'm really grateful for. Not to say that being known as Harry Potter for the rest of your life is a bad thing. I don't think that would have been a terrible thing at all. It's an amazing legacy, and it's going forward. He's continuing to sort of be in contact with this narrative that who knows where it could go in the future. But that said, having someone like Anthony Hopkins tell me it's all right, the door is still open. I don't necessarily ascribe this philosophy to this experience, but I do believe in this saying. I don't know if it was Oscar Wilde that said. Everyone attributes sayings to Oscar Wilde, so maybe it was Oscar Wilde, maybe it was someone else. But something along the lines of, if you want to be a banker, a lawyer, a doctor, you will train you will train and work, and you will get there, and you will become those things, and that will be your punishment. If you want to be an artist, you will train and work at it, and at the end of your life, you won't be anything, and that will be your reward. So you won't be known as sort of this one thing. You'll have these many facets. You'll have, have all these stories of your life. And obviously it's an oversimplification, and I'm sure there are fascinating lawyers and doctors and amazing people. And it's not a bankers, whatever. But I do hold that close, that when doors are open, it's never a bad thing.
Right. And I mean, someone like Anthony Hopkins consoling you is not a bad person to be doing that, right? Like that's incredible.
You're not wrong about that.
And that's so nice that he took you aside and just talked to you like that, because clearly it sounded like you might have needed it without knowing it. Like you said, you were still hurting. So being able to have someone with the resume of Anthony Hopkins, it sounds like incredible guy as well. That's awesome.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think you needed it without knowing it.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of incredible actors, my fiance is the biggest fan of this guy. She made sure that if I was going to ask you anything, it was about him specifically. So you played Tom Hanks's son in Road to Perdition.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Because I mean, obviously, you at the time, you were about like probably 5-ish when Toy Story came out. So like, you would have known him from that. Like, what was that? That must have been incredible.
Oh yeah, Forrest Gump.
Yep.
Growing up with those, yeah, that really was that experience too, because Steven Spielberg produced that film. Sam Mendes directed the film. That experience was, at that time, too, for me, another level. Like, it felt like a step up. It felt like, wow, okay, it was a very different energy. It was a very masculine set. Daniel Craig, Jude Law, Paul Newman, Tom Hanks. A very, very hardworking, industrious, inventive group of actors. Generous, super generous actors. And Tom Hanks, I mean, he's probably everything you want him to be.
Nice.
He's probably everything you'd hope. Brilliant, funny, warm, such a quick wit. My God, like, that guy is so funny. Yeah, I mean, I remember the table reads. I remember everything about that film. And what like an interesting job that was for him too. Because we were all aware. We were like, oh my God, Tom Hanks is playing a gangster?
Yeah.
Like, we all
he hasn't done it since, right? So like, that is interesting. I don't think, right? So
playing,
you're right.
Playing a foil, kind of like to his usual sort of role I mean, I don't know what our usual role is, because his range is massive. But up until that time, I mean, Castaway had already come out, so maybe he had kind of broken the mold a bit. But for a Hollywood guy to go, you know what, I know what you think I am, and I'm gonna go in a different direction. In a business that is sort of built on, especially now, most recently, not really taking chances, not really taking risks. For him to take that kind of a risk, we were all aware of what was happening for him, for his career, and to be in contact with someone who works as hard as he does at that time, pretty impactful.
I think that once you're talking about like moving up a level, then that makes you want to even go up to another level, seeing what he does. And you're like, okay, wow, I got to work 50,000 times harder, even though I've been working this hard for the years I have been. It just makes you want to like run through a brick wall. No,
it's true.
Yeah.
And he does that thing that people talk about, where being number one on the call sheet is is a prestigious, is a place of honor, and they set the tone. They set the tone for the whole way down.
Right.
And so he's really the example of that. He's the example of, you show up to set, you see how hard he's working, you show up to the table read, you show up to every aspect of the preparation, and you see how hard he's working and the thought that he's putting into it. You will demand that much more of yourself, because you want to support, you want to be ready to respond to whatever he's giving you. You really want that. You want to be a part of that. You want to feel like you're contributing something, and he does that. He does that thing. He does. And for me as a kid, kind of keeping things out of reach at that time was really important for my growth. And so seeing somebody who worked in such a rigorous way, and seeing that and thinking, okay, how can I aspire to that? It was really important for me at that time.
That's awesome. And then, I mean, it's kind of hard not to mention one of my favorite movies of the early 2000s is Good Boy, where you're the lead of the movie. So moving on to something like that, where you're the guy. What, being that young, did you feel that pressure of being the guy? Or you're a little naive to
I mean,
it?
I think I always approached a role like not like I'm the main character, not like I'm the most important, but in a way, my character is the most important to me,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I'm taking care of that. So it was, I mean, it was. There were like big challenges, monologues in there that was new for me. That was, something I hadn't been in contact with. A whole new challenge of acting with tennis balls and CGI, polystyrene models of dogs. Because we had a dozen amazingly well-trained dogs, but they couldn't be there all the time. Keep learning how to chart a character's emotional journey. That was not new, but to do it on that scale where it's like from the first scene all the way to the very end. That was a new experience and a really important learning process.
I feel like that'd be maybe isolating is not the right word, but I feel like that'd be kind of like a lonely-ish role to have, just because, like you said, you're either with animals or you're talking to
Yeah.
tennis balls a lot of the time. Like, that must have been just such a weird experience at that age.
Yeah, it's a good. That's astute observation, because I think it is that way when you are that character in a film, and there is something that I've seen other people who hold that position in a narrative or in a film, that it is a lonely job in that way. I need to take care of this journey. I need to make sure that this character's fulfilled in this journey, and that I live out the experience in a well-rounded, truthful way. It becomes a one-on-one relationship, to the character, to the story, to with yourself, and so. Yeah, it is. It is a bit lonely. I mean, there's like, I don't mean this in a dreadful way, but there is almost at times a kind of a dread.
Mm-hmm.
That you sometimes are walking to set, and it does feel like, uh, uh, like a gallows. It does. It does. It does. I mean, it just. There are times when you're walking up and you're going, "Oh my God, am I ready for this? Am I ready? Is this it? Is it? Am I gonna be? Is it gonna show up?" And then usually things settle down on set. And this is the amazing thing. One of the things that I love about being on a set is that when everyone else has finished working, I begin.
Mm.
It's this thing where everyone else has prepared the stage, prepared the set. Everyone has placed, the books on the shelf, the light in the right spot, the mics. Everybody is set. Everybody has done all their work for hours and hours and hours, so that when you arrive, the stage goes quiet and it's your time to focus. And that's when all those kind of fears and nerves and all of that, that's when all that stuff quiets, settles down, goes away, disappears. But, the nervous system kind of forgets about that state until you get there. So yeah, there's this nervousness, this loneliness, this yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing we do. It's
Yeah.
a strange, difficult thing we do. There's no one else does this. There might be a reason for it.
Yeah. No, and I mean on a much, much, much smaller scale, but I understand the nerves thing when it comes to like leading up to what you're about to do. Like no matter what, every single time I do one of these podcasts, it's always that like probably within the hour of starting it, it's for me straight nerves. Right up until either the guest joins or when I click that record button where it's like, okay, I'm good, right? So it's the anxiety leading up to doing whatever you're about to do. Once you're in it, at least for me, 99% of the time, I'm perfectly fine. Like right now, it feels like I'm talking to my buddy. You know what I mean? Like, but leading up to it, no matter what, who it is, it's like my heart's beating a million miles a minute, right? So again, on a much smaller scale, I understand the nerves thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then you should know that there's a good chance that the person on the other end of the line that you're talking to also experienced a similar thing the hour before
Right. Well,
the
hey,
appointed
at
time.
the end of the day, we're all human, right?
We're all human, yeah, and we all want to do our best. We all want to show
Exactly.
up.
So I read a fact that you're allowed to hold the camera and you filmed like one shot of the movie, but then they end up cutting it. Do you know anything about that? Do you
Oh my
remember that?
God! I don't know how you found out about that, but yeah, I do. I remember that very well.
Were you a
Some of
little
the
like
exact
bummed that they're
shots.
like, hey, you know what? Never mind. We can't use this.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It wasn't operator error that caused
Yeah, no,
them
don't take
to
blame.
put it
Smart.
on the cutting room floor. No, it really was just a timing, like an edit timing kind of a thing. It was like an insert shot. There
Oh,
was one shot of a can, get like smoke pouring out of a can, and it was just this insert, and it was like action and the smoke pouring out, and then cut, and I was on the camera for maybe 10 seconds. Yeah, and it just didn't make the edit.
the one you did, they had to just like, ah, never mind. This doesn't make sense. It's okay. Then
Yeah,
the other thing I read was that they gave you a dog at the end of filming,
that is
but
very
that
true.
they waited till the end of the day because you had to do
Yep.
like some sad scenes that day, and they didn't want to make you be happy, which sounds so messed up. But that's pretty cool that they end up giving you your own. What was it? A greyhound?
An Italian Greyhound.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Which I have one now.
Yep.
Um, hey Nico, here.
Were you a fan? Like, was this like a type of dog you liked before and they just knew, or now you then became like a fan of these dogs after you got presented one?
I was a fan of the dog when we were filming. So
Okay.
they had two that were playing Nellie
Yes.
in the film, and I just loved them so much. They were so unusual and so sweet, and yeah, and so they found out that I love these dogs, and they got me one, and it was on the DVD. Like I think it's on YouTube now or something. There's like a little thing where what they did was so the kind of the climax, the emotional climax of the film, when I'm speaking to Hubble through the radio, and I don't know it's on, and that it's transmitting, and he's hearing me. Um, uh, that that we were filming that on the last day of filming, um, uh, and after that, the director John Hoffman, who everyone will know now, for I mean, he's done amazing. He's been a writer for a very long time, but now he's like, Only Murders in the Building. is like his show. And so anyway, John Hoffman came out. He came out. He was like, we're gonna just. I had this idea last night. He was always kind of coming up with, this might be funny. Let's try this. So he was like, I had this idea last night. Let's have. It's just gonna be a quick insert, quick thing. You're gonna be in the bathroom, and you're gonna hear knocking, and you'll be like, "What's that?" And it's gonna be Hubble, and he's gonna be like, come on, hurry up. It's like, all right, yeah, sure, let's okay. But it was basically just a way to get me into a closed room.
Oh.
So then, what they were doing on the outside of the, they'd set up a camera, the door, all that stuff, and what they were doing was they were putting this Italian Greyhound in a little box and putting it in front of the door. So they said action, and I opened the door as though I've heard something. It was Kez, my first Italian Greyhound.
Did you still think it was part of like what you're supposed to be filming, or did you kind of understand at that point?
No, because there was a sign on the box that said "I'm yours."
Okay, then you're like, okay, the jig is up. Okay, fair. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I could not believe my eyes. I mean,
I remember seeing that movie in theaters, like when back when I was a kid. Obviously, kids would have like movie theater like birthday parties, and like one of my buddies, it was his birthday party, and we went to the movie theater, and this is what we saw.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's a great.
Yeah, because I would have been 90. I would have been about 8. I think it was 2004. I'm pretty sure that movie came out. If I'm correct.
2002.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So I was under 10. I remember that. So yeah, and I remember like my buddies were like, "Yeah, this movie's awesome."
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, moving on to when I was a kid, like making me read was probably kind of difficult, just because like I'm such a like a ADD. I like always just want to do something else. Reading's kind of relaxing. That wasn't my thing. One book or series I remember reading in school that I paid more attention to than others were Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. Now, obviously, this became a movie where you star in it with one of the biggest actors of all time, Jim Carrey. So, were you a fan of the books before you got this part, or did you not even know about them?
Don't forget Meryl Streep. And,
Meryl Streep, that's true. Meryl Streep is in it as well.
But yeah. I mean, at that time too, Jim was pretty mega. But yeah, so that was really, for me. I was about 12 when I was auditioning for that when I was making Good Boy. So I remember auditioning for that while we were filming. Barry Sonnenfeld was originally going to direct, and I was auditioning for it when he was going to direct, and then Brad Silverling came on to direct. And I came back in the picture there. But so basically, that, because I was also reading the books at that time. I had already read all the books that were out. I had read them all up until that time, which there were, I don't know, 7 or 8 books out at that time, like they were still coming out. And that was really cool because, talking about the Harry Potter thing, this was like the American sort of, no, I mean, it wasn't about magic, but it was kind of magical. And there was some magical realism in there. This was kind of like, okay, they're going to make a film series about a bunch of kids, a little family, and it's like, it's an American author, and it's, kind of an American story. So this was like, okay, maybe this could happen. I couldn't do the British thing. I was, I was locked out of that. But maybe this could be, this could be my thing. It's like a series, and this could be it. Yeah. So that was the feeling going into it. That was what I was experiencing going into that. Like, it didn't work out last time, but maybe this time. So.
Now, I must be the biggest idiot in the world, because for the longest time, up until maybe last week, I thought Lemony Snicket was a real person until I realized, no, that's a fake person, and the actual author is Daniel Handler. So
that's right.
That just kind of shows like the weird and wacky world of this series, and just like Daniel handler as a person in general. So was the audition process relatively normal for Klaus?
Well, I was in Vancouver filming Good Boy, so when I auditioned for that, it was self tape. I
Oh,
auditioned with a self tape, and that was unusual at the time. So anyway, I auditioned for it with a self tape. The next thing I remember, I'm pretty sure I auditioned again, but the next really vivid memory I have of the sort of pre-starting work um, part of the process was doing the screen test.
hmm.
Full makeup and wardrobe, and being on a little sound stage and just shooting some film.
I know chemistry read can vary between like obviously just doing it or not. Did you do that with Rose, who obviously played your sister in the movie?
Emily.
Oh, sorry, Emily. Emily.
Yeah. I think we did. I mean, I think when we did our screen test,
Yeah.
we were we. I don't remember. It wasn't really like a scene though. We weren't really doing a chemistry read like a scene. Usually, a chemistry read is, there's like a scene, or you're doing something that's kind of devised, um, some sort of devised interaction.
Hmm.
This I remember it just basically like sitting in a chair and just sort of looking and seeing how everything looked.
Right.
Um, yeah, but I remember meeting Emily then. I think that's when we met.
Makes sense. Now you're talking about seeing things, and I was just talking about how it's like an interesting world. Now these sets were really cool, just like as like visual, seeing it on the seeing it in the movie. Those sets like coming to life, because I watched a feature from the DVD the other day about them building these up like the small sculptures, and then obviously turning them into real things. So those just must have been wacky, like from like the houses, and like there's so much going on, so many different areas. So like the set must have been pretty cool at that point, huh?
Oh my god! I mean, the one of the sets was the largest set in Hollywood history at the time.
Really?
Yeah, where
Huh.
we filmed the lake.
Yes.
The lake itself had a small town at one end, which was near where our aunt lived, where Meryl Streep's character lived. That was like the fishing village nearby where she lived. And then the other end of it was the beach that you see at the very beginning of the film. And in the middle was the cove, was the cave structure. So all of that was attached on a set, and they actually carved out a 4-foot trench in the like a pool in the ground of the sound stages at Downey in Downey, which are an old Boeing factory. So these massive hangars. And they filled it with millions of gallons of water. So much water that the Coca-Cola processing plant down the street lost water pressure for 3 days while we were filling
What?
the like 3 million gallons of water, putting it in in the lake.
Is that normal to have like so many different sets built into one? That's not right. Normally, like they're
No,
separate.
no, right. It would be separate. It would be separate, but they were just ingenious. I mean, they did so many clever things. Like the whole train sequence is on a 360-degree forced perspective set. So when you're standing in the middle of it, it looks like it goes off for miles in each direction. Only when you see somebody walking along the horizon can you tell, oh, actually that building is, this big. So, you said the scale models and stuff, there were like tiny little things at the edge of that set too that looked, photorealistic. You would never question it. And teeny tiny little cows like way off on a hill, distant hill, that were, real. And the background, the backing, like there's a beautiful thing that is kind of, I saw something recently that was like sort of a lost art. It's painted backgrounds for films. and they had these amazing forced perspective painted backgrounds that you'd stand on set and you could have swore you were staring out at a vista. And the sets, like down to the smallest details, there are things on those sets that I don't think you could even capture in the camera that we got to experience, we got to take part of. And like in Olaf's house, eyes in everything. I mean, absolutely everywhere you looked, there was an eye. The level of detail that they took to create the world, it's just absolutely mind blowing.
That's
Mind blowing.
insane. Yeah, no.
Also, because it was right at the sorry.
No, you're good.
Sorry, Quinn. It was right at the advent of CGI. So had that film been made 3 or 4 years later, we would have probably not had the benefit of these remarkable sets,
Right.
because it would have just fallen to CGI.
True.
Let's not make the lake as big. Let's just kind of make the waves extend off, into the graphics. We'll just make everything look kind of how we want to. We could do a painted background, or we could just do a green screen and put it in later. None of that stuff was on the table. It was all practical. The house that falls into the sea actually was built on hydraulic risers that could drop 9 feet during filming. So when things got unstable, they could drop one side of the house down, and then they could break it in half and have the house come apart and put it back together and come apart again and put it back together and come apart. And like all of this stuff was put into making these sets as practical, as real as possible. I mean,
that's so cool. It kind of gives me Beetlejuice vibes, just like the set.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Aesthetically, I could totally see.
100%.
Yeah.
And I read at one point you were working with at least up to like 5 snakes at once. What was that like? Were you scared at all? I was watching some of the behind the scenes of you. You look pretty calm.
Yeah, I had worked with snakes before on a film called I Dreamed of Africa. When I was about 9 years old, we went to South Africa, and I made this movie like out in the bush. We were like 8 hours outside Johannesburg. We were just way out, and as part of that film, I was playing a real life person who went on to deal with snake venom and was bringing snake venom to a hospital for antivenoms, but he got interested in snakes when he was a little kid. Anyway, I had to have like a snake on set in a few scenes, and I had to have reptiles and stuff. So I fell in love with snakes and reptiles and during that filming. So when we got to Snicket, there was a scene where I'm sitting in a chair and they had all these, I think they were rat snakes. They had all these non-venomous kind of smallish snakes, and I had them in my hands. And that was just like, yeah, I know what I'm doing here. I've been here before, and so that wasn't a worry at all.
Right, that's so cool. Now, I mentioned about Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Now he's such a character on screen. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
was he like that off screen as well? And just like, what kind of person was he to interact with when he's not on camera?
No, he's very charming. He's very mannerly, like extremely well mannered. Not really big, not big like that at all. No, he's charming. He can be funny. He's on in the sense that he's present, but he's not on like he is when he's in a role. If that makes sense.
Were you surprised about that? Did you think he was going to be like the wacky all the time, 24/7 Jim Carrey?
No. I think having worked with enough people, I knew that they weren't always, how they seemed on camera, and also like I don't think you'd want that probably, like you want somebody who you can be straight with when you need to be straight, and who you can kind of get things. You need to get things done. You're on set, and so you got to get. But what I was impressed with, and what I didn't expect was the variety that he would bring to the role. You know, how he could do 30 completely different takes of the same scene, the same lines. I remember his first day on set was that monologue where he's walking down the stairs, and it's a 3-minute monologue, and he did it about 75 times. And I remember just hearing about that. Because I was there, I was supposed to be working that day, but they just did his monologue. They didn't do anything else. So I was on set, but I wasn't in the room. I had to do school. I had to do other things when I wasn't on set. So yeah.
Did you ever pull him aside and just kind of like try to pick his brain just about the business and like kind of his career in general?
Not really. No. No. I mean, that's something I could have done, I think. But on set, I think trying to keep things professional, trying to get to know each other through the work, rather than sort of taking him, just because when we were working, he would be filming and then he'd be watching. So he'd be filming his takes and then watching his takes. So when he did that, there wasn't really a lot of room to kind of just have a chat. The time to have done that would have maybe been in the makeup trailer, because he would be in there for a few hours a day.
True.
But I had to do school. So I had 3 hours that I had to do school. So when he was getting his makeup, taking that on, putting that on, and taking it off, I was probably in school. So
that makes sense. I remember that. So the movie obviously covered the first 3 books, and then I read that there was plans to make sequels, because I think at the time there were still 10 other books. So at that time, what did they tell you about potential sequels, if anything?
Well, we knew it was possible, but it relied on scheduling, because it's not like Harry Potter where the characters age. It's not like every book they're a year older, where Harry Potter kind of has that format. And I guess some other franchises have that format where the characters are regularly aging. I don't think the characters age a year until the last book.
Wow.
So to have done that, they kind of realized this a little. I mean, I think they knew it going into it, but they weren't going to go full kilter until they knew that it could work. We would have had to film it kind of like they were doing Lord of the Rings, which came out around the time that we were filming. So it was also kind of an untested way of making a trilogy. We would have had to make probably 3 films if we wanted to cover all the stories. We would have had to make them all at the same time. And also TV is streaming. Streaming wasn't a thing. TV didn't have the investment that it has now. So you could feasibly make that series into a television series now, and they have. But at the time, it was basically, we want to make this for theaters, and the only way to do it is with a massive budget and in a long shooting schedule. That we filmed that for 9 months.
Wow.
Which was originally, it was not scheduled to be a 9-month shoot. It was scheduled to be much shorter than that, but once they saw, okay, it took 9 months to make one movie, I don't think we can do all 3 that we want to do before. I mean, I grew 5 inches while we were making the film.
Oh my God.
So, by the time we finished the 3rd film, I'd have had a deeper voice. I'd have been starting to shave probably. It wouldn't have, as aesthetically what the films were about, which was about young children, dealing with the loss of their parents and a very confusing world, kind of a sinister world. It wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have been the same.
No, that's fair. Did you mention the Netflix series? Neil Patrick Harris plays Olaf. Did you watch it?
I'll be honest, I watched an episode, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe not even a full. I started watching it, and they got the aesthetic just right, but watching it, I was like, I love our movie, and I just, it was hard to to separate it. It was hard
Yeah,
to separate it. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fair.
yeah.
They if they come back to you now, they want to do like a new spin of Snicket with you reprising your role of Klaus. What's your response?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Would everyone need to be in for you to do it? I know that might be an odd question. Or if there's just the story's right.
Yeah. I mean, if the story's right, always. Which I imagine it would be. And I've done some stuff for Daniel Handler since, for Lemony Snicket since. Like I read a series of books that he wrote, which for young adults, about Lemony Snicket. About the author and his childhood. And so, like at this point, I think maybe a story about Lemony Snicket would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, of course, I'd want to play that well-read young man again.
That'd
For
be
sure.
really cool. That'd be an interesting spin on like whatever they do. Just the fact that it's this many years later, I think it would be pretty cool. Obviously, it would need to involve someone like Jim Carrey, Daniel Handler. So that would be very
Yeah,
cool.
and he's not doing stuff, so I don't know. I mean,
Right,
I don't know.
and he's not a massive sequel guy either.
Well,
He has a
yeah,
few.
yeah, Dumb and Dumberer,
And then Ace Ventura. I
Ace
can't think of
Ventura.
another one.
Yeah, Ace Ventura. No, you're right. I mean,
Yeah. That
yeah,
would make it even better the fact that he did do another sequel though. So no, I'm petitioning for it now.
yeah. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind 2.
Yeah, yeah, like that one wouldn't work. Now I know I've been taking so much of your time, so I kind of want to run through these quick and see like where we're at with you now. But like coming off the high of Snicket, you had Faye Grimm, couple episodes of Law and Order, The
Yeah.
Killer Inside Me, you're an episode of Mad Men, How to
Yeah.
Be a Man. Like you didn't stop working after this, so we're now in 2025. The Emoji Movie, which is hilarious to me. Now we're in 2025. So give me a rundown of everything Liam Aiken is doing now. Then I got one final question after that. Then I swear I'll let you go.
All right, love it. No, you've been great, Quinn. This has been a real pleasure. So,
I appreciate it.
so no worries about the time. But yeah, so I am this summer. I'm going to be doing some Q&As and screenings for a film I did a couple years ago, which is called V13. That is a story that takes place in Vienna in 1913, and it follows a young man dealing with his familial trauma, trying to understand it and understand the ways in which it's influenced him to become radicalized. And it deals with themes of anti-Semitism and radicalization, and most importantly, de-radicalization, which I think is just a really potent story right now for our time. And that's with Alan Cumming, who plays Freud, and I am taking analysis with Dr. Freud. That's essentially the backdrop of the film. There are also some historical figures in there that show up and sort of at an unrecognizable time in their lives, which is really makes for a really interesting narrative. So we're screening that. We're doing that in New York this summer. In August, we have a screening planned, and then we have another one, a virtual screening and virtual Q&A set up in September. So yeah, highly recommend it. I think we're going to be streaming this fall, so I recommend people checking it out. Yeah, I mean, I did do another Law and Order last fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was cool because they've rebooted the original, and I got to work with somebody who was working on the show when I was like 8 years old, and I did my first ever episode.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got to come back and play a totally new character, kind of ripped from the headlines, but that show is always a little bit ahead of its time. Like it was pretty cool to see, to be back on set, but also to see like how that narrative that they came up with actually kind of played out in real life. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm up to.
That's
right now.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The last question I ask everyone this, what's one thing you miss most about being a kid?
Great question. Well, I try to keep it alive. I don't. Yeah, it's you know, life doesn't make it easy to keep that joy alive. It doesn't make it easy, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't try. It doesn't mean it's not worth trying. So I do try. I do stay engaged with the things that bring me joy. I try not to think of myself as no longer that little kid. I try to stay in touch with him, with myself. Um, I keep doing the things I love. So I think if I when I was a kid, looking forward into the future, I don't think I would have imagined my future to be as kind of similar or simple and as joyous as it is. So I'm very lucky to say that I've kept most of the things I loved about being a kid alive.
That's awesome. You're the first person to have that answer, though, and I love it. That's great. Man, Liam, dude, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it. You
Oh,
taking the time, listening to me and my dumb questions. So thank you so much. This
not
has
dumb
been
at all, Quinn. You really did your research. And that's actually why I agreed to do the podcast. I got your message, and it's always great to hear from people. But it was very well written, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I looked at some of your clips, and I was like, well, this guy is asking great questions. He's listening, and he's doing his research. So that made me excited to be involved and to take your call. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you
And
so
thank you
much.
for doing the work you're doing. So
Yeah.
I hope all the best for you, and
I
I see
appreciate
good
that.
things.
There was so much
Thank
more we could get into, so I'd love to get you on again. Maybe one day if I ever make it to New York,
Great.
I'll find you.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
Sounds
Liam,
good.
again, man.
Of course.
This was awesome.
Next time.
See
Okay.
ya.
Take care, Quinn.
And that was the Quinn Marr Show.